Speaking of. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and I have been talking a little bit to nothing because I forgot to start the stream, but that's because today we're talking about Sensational Wonder Woman, and if you'll notice, there's quite a bit of things going on all at once here. We've had some pretty serious moves, including a brand new computer that I'm going to be streaming from, which should improve things. I should suffer from less crashes and other issues with audio and all that crap that I had kind of fixed with the older computer, but had been cropping up more and more. But with all this new tech comes all new settings to figure out and tweak. So if there are any issues, please let me know throughout the review. Tevye is saying, so you're moving? No, we're not moving. We're just, we'll say, renovating. We're improving things. Right now it doesn't actually look like much, but all we've really done is flipped your perspective. You normally see me talking from where the camera's right up against the wall where the couch is now. We've flipped, and the wall against here has actually been painted. Everything's going to kind of look a little bit different for streams going forward, but for now, this is sort of a midway setup. Sorry for the delay in starting the stream. That kind of gets into the whole technical issues I was talking about, and I'm going to mute that actually. It just pinged to let me know I was online, which is useful. But okay, we're going to take all that aside right now because we'll probably do a little bit more of a tour or show off some of the stuff, when it's all set up. Right now, like, it's really just a stark blank wall right there and the couch, but more things are coming. Oh, and hey, you can actually see this, and I will give a little shout out to this computer here, which delivered every single Comic Island video you've known up until the ones you've seen today. The Grading the Avengers video that came out earlier was made on this newer computer, and this stream is as well. But that little juggernaut there lasted for a good 7 years or so, some of which, was when I was with Comic Island, so all Comic Island videos are made on that thing. Different graphic novels and stuff, or graphic cards over the course of the years, but otherwise the same core existed for a long time, and it served us well. And it's kind of just funny to think about, like, yeah, if you've watched any of these videos, it was through the conduit of that computer, any that I made, aside from the ones that Joey did, which is interesting. I Only Date Saiyan says Wonder Woman and is excited, and that's probably a good segue into the actual book, because I don't want to be too distracted by any of that. We are going to be talking about a digital first series, which I've kind of talked about here and there on streams before, but I don't know if I've really properly covered one with a print copy right here. But certainly not since DC's really started to move to this new philosophy of doing what they basically did with this book. Jim Lee was talking about this last year, but I feel like this is my first real taste of it. And it's the digital first series are something that DC was experimenting on right at the start of the pandemic, and have continued well since then. And basically what they've started to do is use the digital comics as a barometer for what might sell in print, and kind of using that to sort of decide on what they actually want to do in print. Nerdette's Newsstand says, did you read it yet? I read it on digital first and I was very disappointed. I can't speak to the whole series, actually. This is one I don't believe I read any of on digital first, but did read entirely, did read this first print copy, and there's only a number 2 out in the print world. I can't speak to the rest of it. We're mostly going to be talking about this number 1 book, and as I kind of hinted at in the title and the description of this video, the larger consequences of that digital review rather than this series itself. It's interesting that you say that about the larger series, because I can't really say much about that. I noticed that it doesn't have the same creative team every time. It's like some of the other digital first books that we've seen out there, where it sort of shuffles video in and out. Okay, hang on. So I thought this was a little low. Let me just figure this out real quick, because I'm not sending out enough video and it will keep lagging. Let's see here for a second. Sorry guys. I tried to warn you right at the beginning it was going to be a bit more of a technical stream, and that's why I kind of just picked a simple Wonder Woman book to help us out. So, let's do this. Yeah. Alright, I might blink out. Oh, let me see. I might have blinked in and out of existence with lag there, but I seem to be better now. And hopefully YouTube will catch up with me in a second. Tevye says the cover looks amazing. You know, it really caught my attention with the lions and stuff. Unfortunately, it's not terribly indicative of what the book's about, but I like the book. It's written by Stephanie Phillips, who we actually just talked about in the Manamongi series from Image, and it's really cool to see her get a chance to shine in the first Wonder Woman book. And she does an excellent job with this particular story. Nudette was saying that like the larger Sensational Wonder Woman series involves like different writers for each book, from what I understand, so her larger disappointment isn't necessarily indicative of what's in here. And they're also saying in chat, I've noticed Stephanie is finally getting into her DC groove and getting much better. I am glad to hear that, because I like her as a writer, and I felt she was really shining here. This story is all about Wonder Woman being trapped in this strange illusion, and we eventually learn that it was created by Dr. Psycho, but a lot of the book, I'm going to be able to summarize the plot very quickly, because a lot of it is just sort of in dynamic action, Wonder Woman kind of being in this fantasy world where she's living just this role of a housewife, and she saves a little boy. These are all very simple things, but they're showcased well through the artwork. Megan Hetrick and Marissa Louise. Megan does the pencils and inks, and Marissa Louise does the coloring. They do an excellent job at kind of creating this sort of old-timey cartoony feeling until things start getting real, and we flash back to the more concrete world of Wonder Woman unconscious being menaced by Dr. Psycho, with Hawkgirl defending her. And the art almost reminds me of Scott Snyder's Justice League, with its ability to kind of live on the bridge between like basically a Justice League cartoon or the like DC animated universe of the 90s, and a more realistic tone that kind of evokes something that maybe Jim Lee would draw, speaking of him, or the New 52 or something like that. And I actually really like that blend. And that's pretty much it. Wonder Woman just eventually breaks free of the illusion with some very dynamic and cool looking artwork where she's just fighting this weird black void as she's like trying to tear out of reality. It's creative stuff, and speaking of, it almost reminds me of Animal Man. I'm laughing because me and my partner were just talking about how easy it is in critique to fall back on just, oh, it reminds me of this and that. But it's good to kind of just give a sense of what I thought about it, rather than just describing it in vague terms, I suppose. Anyway, she defeats Dr. Psycho, and that's about it. So a very simple, clear-cut story, all self-contained in the single issue, but that's why I like it so much. It really isn't so much about the complexity of the plot, but how that plot is executed. And this is a very simple story of Wonder Woman fighting one of her old villains, and I loved it. It really just comes down to the execution, and by doing a good job with the illustrations and making the art active and fun, it's a very pleasant read that definitely felt worth my time and money. So overall, I definitely think I would recommend this book. I'd be cautious to recommend the rest of the series for the reasons that I talked about earlier. It's kind of an anthology series where each issue is its own independent thing, so you'd have to kind of look at other reviews for individual issues and see whether or not you want to pick them up. The cool side of that is you can go to a comic book store any time between now and when they stop publishing this series, pick out any random Wonder Woman book, and probably be entertained from start to finish without having to worry about knowing anything other than the basics about Wonder Woman. And that kind of works for these digital series. Most of them from DC tend to go in that direction, although that's not true of all of them. And I think this little direction for them, from a corporate standpoint, isn't necessarily the worst idea in the world. DC's in a rough place largely because of larger corporate politics from their parent company, and mismanagement on that end has led to layoffs on DC's end, which is unfortunate. But my hope is through doing stuff like this, they can still remain relevant as a comic book publisher, which I feel, even if no one's willing to acknowledge it, they kind of need to be if they want to keep making comic book movies, because I think you do need fresh content and people able to create these new ideas and modernize things, or else it's going to get stagnant very quickly. Now, Tevye says, I think the challenge of Super Sons was a great digital series. Oh, and there's a lot. We've talked about it a lot, but I haven't really had a chance to review it because I tend not to finish my digital books and immediately want to review them the way I tend to with print a little more. When print is sitting in front of me, I'm like, oh yeah, I should review this. Digital, I have to kind of go to my library and think about that, and it's a little bit more of an active process. But there's the what was it? Oh, the what are they called? The Tom Taylor zombie series for Deceased. There's a great At World's End digital first series, and some of the other ones here. I can even pull it up on Comixology right now to give you guys an idea of some of the ones that I like, because I'm hesitating, but I don't need to when I go to my books here. I'll have them in front of me. So these are the ones on my device, but let's see what I have overall. Start at the top. So for DC, that's okay. I have a lot here. Batman Gotham Knights has been, I would say, very adequate. I'd almost describe it more like Nerdette's Newsstand described it earlier, where it's very hit and miss because it's an anthology series. At Hope's End, on the other hand, is much more reliable because even though a lot of those stories are standalone, it's part of this creative narrative, like thread, and most of them are written, I think if not all of them, are written by Tom Taylor. What else do I have here? At Hope's End is one of my favorite out of all of them because I just read through them quickly. I just passed that. Flash, Fastest Man Alive. Those ones are kind of interesting because I find they are doing some stuff with like early era Flash in terms of Barry Allen's career as a superhero that are kind of cool, but I kind of am a little hit or miss on those ones too. I haven't read From Beyond the Unknown or Ghosts yet, but that kind of gets into how this series can be a little more experimental and do stuff that they haven't done for years. Like, I don't think they've published any Ghost comics since the 1980s. What else do we have? I know there's a Superman one and a Wonder Woman one, obviously, and both are kind of the same thing as Batman, where it can be hit and miss. Shazam! Lightning Strikes, I remember liking a little bit, like quite a bit. And Swamp Thing New Roots is kind of an interesting one because it can be a very different idea. Actually, I misspoke. Superman Man of Tomorrow might be one of the better ones out there. I think they're all, or at least some of them, are written by Robert Venditti, and every one of them are very well-polished Superman stories. I forgot about that, actually, until I saw the title written in my little library list there. And I think that was great. Tevye says, I personally prefer Wally West way more than Barry Allen. Oh, well, that's a discussion and debate that will be echoed throughout comic book history, I feel. Although, it does kind of feel as if the transition has leaned towards Barry Allen because of the TV show and now the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League really showing off how cool Barry Allen can be and what a central part of a story like Justice League he could have been. And I wonder if the trend is going to start to switch towards Barry Allen a little bit more, with Wally West kind of taking more of a back seat. I understand he is part of the CW verse, but he's always kind of been a secondary character there. And it's been a long time since something like the 90s Justice League cartoon where it was Wally West. And I think stuff like that and Wally being the mainstream Flash for a long time around that same time period really had an influence on people. But over time that can diminish. The generation where the Flash to them was like Jay Garrick is effectively gone. And most people kind of think of him as a secondary character, even though he was obviously the original. So these things can change. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when like our generation goes away, if there isn't a return to Wally West in the future. Because there might not be. Or he might go on to just kind of take on the role of Kid Flash in the yellow suit and that sort of thing, which is okay, but curious if so. Tevia says, oh, not again, because we just got Wally West back as the main Flash in the main book. Well, I don't necessarily mean like that, but I mean even as he exists now, he's still kind of secondary to Barry in a lot of ways. In a series like the Digital First Flash one, it's going to almost always default to Barry and stuff like that at this point in DC history, like and how DC publishes things. So when I say that, I mean if a Flash is going to turn up in the video game of any kind, it's most likely to be Barry Allen first, unless it's a Teen Titans kind of deal. So it's just some food for thought. I don't know how we really got into that other than me just talking about that random Digital First series, but I think that's off topic enough to maybe end things there. But yeah, don't worry guys, I'm sorry I've been a little quiet the last couple of weeks, but you can expect more streams and stuff now that I'm kind of getting back into my groove. So thanks for watching everybody, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.